So, given how things turned out in last night's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the number one question trending everywhere is who did Raina turn into? What is Raina? And so, what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to answer this question given the information that Marvel has given us so far in the Marvel Comics with the current running story called Inhuman. So with this discussion on who it is Raina has become, what we're going to do is we're going to make this video pretty straightforward. And the reason why is because if she is who I believe she is, then she's a very new character. And so there really isn't a whole lot to know about her. But the reason why we're making this video is because for those of you who are interested, this actually gives you a really good place to start in order to learn more about her character as Marvel reveals this information. But the front runner as to who it is that Raina has become is a woman named Naja. And Naja is an Inhuman who developed her abilities as a result of the Terrigen bomb being detonated. Now, the Terrigen bomb, the Terrigen bomb's detonation was a result of an event called Infinity. And Infinity, this was a story that was given to us on two fronts. The first part had to do with the Builders, who were perusing the Earth 616 continuity and trying to kill off for various planets and various societies and so on, but it was a way for them to try to end the incursions, much in the same way that their alternate universe counterparts were doing. But the other half of this story has to deal with Thanos, who has basically been tracking down all of his offspring throughout the cosmos and killing them off. And so ultimately this led him to Attilan, whereby he confronted Black Bolt and tried to get Black Bolt to tell him where his son was at. Black Bolt, of course, refused and screamed in the face of Thanos, and in the process detonated the Terrigen bomb. Now, what this does is this allows us to pick up during the events of Inhuman. Now, there are some things called inhumanity and so on that take place between the two, but in truth, those aren't really necessary to read. For the most part, you could really just jump between Infinity and then Inhuman and pretty much have all the pieces, or at the very least have it explained so that it all makes sense. But the fact remains that with the events of Inhuman, this tells us what's happened after the Terrigen bomb had detonated and the Terrigen mist had spread throughout the rest of the world. And so what we find is that in issue number 5, we join with a couple of previously established characters named Flint and Inferno, as they're trying to make their way to New Attilan, the new home of the Inhumans, when they meet a woman named Naja. Now, Naja, the way that she's introduced to us is basically, again, a character that had recently developed her powers, but at the same time, she's also trying to find her way back to New Attilan, trying to find, again, this city so that she can learn what it is to be an Inhuman. She can learn how to cope with her powers, and she can learn how to be a productive member of that society, to basically just kind of find a home for herself. And again, this really ties into Raina once it's happened that she's undertaken this transformation and undergone Terrigenesis during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so what happens is Raina's powers are basically given to us over the course of this story. We learn, of course, that basically she's able to make herself invisible to a degree, but the invisibility that she has is tied directly into her emotions, in the sense that when she's at peace with herself, she's able to basically reflect light off of herself in such a way that it more or less makes her invisible. So it's not true invisibility so much as it is just reflecting light. But when she's in a heightened state of emotions, when she's negative, when she's feeling kind of down, then basically she'll begin to pulsate. And so it'll have the opposite effect of invisibility, in the sense it'll make her more visible than she previously was. Now, one of the other reasons why a lot of us in the Marvel Comics community are looking at her as the most likely candidate for who it is that Raina has become is because of her physical appearance, because her hands have very, talons of sorts, in the sense they look like the hands that Raina had in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The physical shape of her head, the talons of sorts, or maybe the spikes or the hairs that protrude out of her hair. What we don't know with Raina in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is what the rest of her looks like, what her body looks like, whether or not she has a tail. These things, if they're given to us over the course of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., will either go on to solidify Naja as being who it is that Raina has become, or else totally destroy this theory entirely. But the fact remains that this is the frontrunner. This is the character we perceive her to be. Now, again, Naja is an ongoing character in Inhuman, and we're only about 14 issues in. And so if what you're looking to do is pick up on this character, if you're wanting to read more into this character and learn, for the most part, the things that we'll be learning as we go along with Marvel's explanation and introduction of her character, then you might want to consider jumping into this series. If not, then of course, as time progresses, if this theory is solidified, then I'll bring further videos in the future once we actually get an understanding of her origin, once we actually learn where she came from, who she was before she underwent Terrigenesis. Then of course, I'll explain explain that in future videos, because right now we don't know that. We've simply just been introduced to this character, we've seen her for a few issues, and that's it. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I know it was very short, but again, she's a very new character, and so while I'd love to go more in-depth into her, there just really isn't anything to go in-depth about. There really isn't a whole lot we can get into with her. But yeah, so I will catch you guys later. Peace. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. There you can keep up with all the updates from Comics Explained and talk to me directly.